So, our next session is Poetic Leadership by Alex Gray. Alex Gray will be introducing us to the concept of poetic leadership. This session will explore how creativity and poetry can inform and enhance leadership practices, allowing leaders to connect with their teams on a deeper emotional level and foster meaningful changes. With that note, I would like to welcome Alex on stage.
Good morning, everyone, for the next 2 minutes. How are you all? Very good. Is this the clicker? Hey! Right, good morning. How are you all? Great. I'm so pleased to be here. I've spent a week with Govind taking me around Hyderabad, trip to Pune, trip back from Pune to Hyderabad, and I'm here today to talk about leadership. And I'm pleased I'm following on from Vishal as well, because there's some nice synergies with what you will have heard from Vishal. And also I've noticed some synergies with things I'm going to talk about from some of the previous sessions as well, like Gino's yesterday as well. So I'll try and make sure I call those out as we go around. First thing I'd like to ask, Vishal asked everyone to raise their hand if you are a leader. So could everyone raise their hand if they're a leader? Thank you. I think you should all have your hands raised, because for me, leadership is at all levels of an organization. You might be a leader for your team and so on, and even people in a team can be a leader. So I just first of all want to tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a certified Scrum trainer, so I deliver all of those kind of classes, CSM, CSPOs, all of those kind of things. And I also coach and guide organizations through their Agile transformation activity. But my background, first of all, I started out my career way back in the mid-1990s as a software developer. Actually, my first job in this organization is in Canterbury in the UK, a little company called Parker Steel, and we were a steel stockholder. My first job in this company was a service desk operator. I was the person that would pick up the phone and say, hello, yeah, oh, you've got this problem. All right, okay, let me try and help you fix it. One day, I had a call from a person in the call center. She said, I've got this error on my screen. All right, okay, could you tell me more about the error? And we had a conversation. Right, okay, I don't know what else to do. Guess what I asked her to do? Restart, yeah, turn it off, turn it on again. Right, so great, okay. Could you restart your computer? Yes, it's come up with the same error. This does not make sense. What's going on here? Could you restart again? She restarted. No, it's coming up with the same error. I was like, okay, I'm going to have to come and see you. So I went to go and see her. I said, could you show me what you're doing? She's like, yeah. I turned that off and turned that on again. She was turning the screen off and on again. So silly little story, but it's the power of going and seeing the place of work and seeing what people are doing is very, very valuable. So there's a little story from Parker Steel. And what I'm going to try and do through this talk is give you some of the stories from my journey to get into here today. My next job was a company called P&O Ferries. I spent 14 years at P&O Ferries. I started out as, again, developer. I worked my way up through from developer to project manager at some point. I was a project manager and I was looking after projects. I spent quite a while at P&O Ferries. I'll bring that story in a while as well. This is like the next phase of Alex in my growth. I worked for a company in the UK called RadTac. And RadTac was my growth into leadership as a proper leader, leading. Again, I started out lower. I was a Scrum Master. And this is where I got into training. I've got a lot to thank for RadTac for getting me to where I am. They supported me through my journey to becoming a CST. I also became a director of RadTac and a small shareholder of the company. And I was part of the leadership team. And we had ambitions. We were growing the organization. One of our other leaders, in fact, the original owner of the company, had desires of retiring, and we wanted to grow the company to get to an event to sell. But this is where I experienced lots of different things that a leader might need to to take into consideration. Trying new product lines, what happens if things occur, how do we adapt the organization, what do we do when something's not going quite right? All of those sorts of things happen for us. The big thing that happened whilst I was at RadTac, COVID. Massive impact to our organization. We were a training, coaching organization whose business literally February, March 2020 stopped. Was it 2019? I can't remember. Whenever it was, COVID, I've forgotten about it. Our business stopped. We literally had no training going on, no coaching going on. It was experiment, what can we do? And it was a bit of a nightmare. Luckily, what seemed to happen for RadTac is around August that year, work started picking up. And it picked up rapidly. And by the end of that year, we were running at a higher rate than we were when we started before COVID. Amazing. So things were going very well. That's when this one happened. So since 2020, I think 2021, C Prime purchased RadTac. C Prime's a global organization. It's headquartered in the US. It's got now UK division, an Australian division. We've got a team in India as well. And for me, that was kind of the end of my journey in being a proper leader. I'm still demonstrating leadership skills. But what that's given me the opportunity to do is reflect on some of the things that I'd done in the past that had worked and some of the things that I'd done in the past maybe that weren't quite so good. I'll try and bring some of those in as we go through. What else have I got in here? Oh, my family. Now, it's great, yes, I am a family person. I've done all of that lovely work stuff. But the person in the middle is my daughter. I've learned that my daughter needs to experiment with things and try things and learn for herself. So as a parent, my best thing I can do for my daughter to learn whether she's doing the right thing or not is to let her try it. Just let her go and do it. Okay? So my leadership there is letting them experiment and learn from themselves. On the right-hand side is my middle child, my son. He's now nearly 16. What I've learned from him is if you tell him what to do, he's going to want to do the opposite. Okay? So what tactic I've learned there is say, well, why don't you try the opposite thing and get him to do the thing that I want him to do. So I've learned that sort of reverse psychology tactic there. And just next to me is my youngest son, and he's a bit more easy for me to influence. It's easier for us to just say, oh, have you tried this? And he'll go and do it. So what I'm trying to say there is different people, even within my family, might work in different ways. And as a leader, I'm not saying I am leading the family, it's probably my wife. As a leader, you might want to figure out how do people work? What's their mindset and how are they organising themselves? Anyway, so that's that one. The last thing I just wanted to share to you all, because I like my car. No reason. I could talk for the rest of the time. What have we got? 40 minutes about my car. It's a Caterham 7. It's based on a Lotus 7 created by Colin Chapman in the 1950s. Anyway, there you go. And I live by the sea, so you can see that too. One of the great things that I found of working with C Prime is it's brought lots of people together, and I've got the opportunity to work with other CSTs, PSTs from Scrum.org, SPCTs from SAFE, lots of different people, different thoughts and different ideas about how we're doing things. And one of the challenges we're finding is actually getting all of those people to be aligned and thinking together. So what we did, I think this was 2022, we said, right, we're just going to get everyone together. There was about a dozen of us. We all got together. And we decided to meet at where the mothership was roughly in America. We flew into Boulder, Colorado. Also happens to be the house of where SAFE is and things like that. So the SAFE people were very happy. And what we were trying to do when we got there is to try and align on some of our thinking about what different things are. And one of the conversations we were having is, well, what is our proposition for leadership? And why is leadership so important? And we were having this conversation, we spent a couple of days together, and I kind of come to the conclusion, leadership is very, very, very important. Because leaders define the direction of the organization. Vishal talked about the vision and where people are going and making sure people are aligned to that vision. Leaders define that direction. I came from another talk, I can't remember the gent's name that was in there, we were talking about the culture. I'm saying leaders define the org culture. Everyone portrays the culture, it's the mindset, the behaviors of the organization. But in my experience, the way leaders act and behave has a direct impact on the culture of an organization. Yeah? If a leader acts like something, then the people beneath them tend to follow suit. And I've got some examples of that as we go through. The final thing is leaders define the structure of organizations, where people are, what business units there are, what teams we need to have. There's lots of things there that leaders in organizations are responsible for designing. So they create the direction, the vision, the strategy, the purpose. They decide how they can act, which influences others, and they define the structure of the organizations. I summarize that as the leaders create the environment for success in an organization. Create the environment for success. I've also realized that I'm between you and lunch, so I'm going to try and move through this and keep you on time. This is some data. This comes from the State of Agile survey. They do it every year, I think. This data is from the 2022 one. That was when we all got together as leaders at C Prime. And this survey poll shows there's 3 key challenges into successful Agile adoptions and so on. It's a great survey, you can look that up. But the top one there is 39% of leadership not understanding, putting up roadblocks to organizations adopting Agile. Lack of priorities, I've just talked about that. Leaders need to create that direction. And not understanding Agile as well. So there's some research out there that shows that leadership is very, very important. I'm going to be honest as well. There's 2 places in this class, I'm so used to training, clearly. Two places in this talk where I've made use of ChatGPT. The next one's coming up. I'm not going to go through it all, but I thought, well, maybe what does ChatGPT say about leadership? And it came up with all of these things. So the ethical part of me is saying, I have not verified and validated these things. They've come from ChatGPT, and it may be biased or incorrect. I don't know. But if you have a look at those links that are on here, it does directly link to some of the research. Again, employee engagement improves with leadership. Productivity improves. Staff turnover is affected if there's poor leadership. And so on. I'm not going to go through all those. They're on the slides, and you'll get a copy of them after the conference. So lots of good reasons why we need good leadership. Now I'm coming to my topic. Gino yesterday had that quote, models are useful, or whatever it was, and this is another model, but it might not be right, but use from it what you want. And I'm going to go through each of these aspects of what I'm calling poetic leadership with you. This came from that trip I had to Boulder, Colorado with C Prime. This was something I started thinking about on the plane home, right? So I was decompressing, thinking about all of the different things, and this came to me whilst I was on the way home. And it may not be right. Models might not be right. And I'd love your thoughts afterwards if there's things that are missing we could add to this model. But poetic leadership, I'm going to go through each of the sections of poetic leadership. The first one being P. And P is personal. Now, you're all looking like you've been sat still for a little while. So I assumed there would be tables, but you're all in rows. So what I would like you to do is stand up, everybody, because I feel like some oxygen needs to be moving around. Stand up, everyone. And maybe turn to the person next to you, or 3 people get into a trio, and have a conversation and share with each other an example of where you've experienced a leader showing up in a meeting or a conversation in a bad way. They did not show up well. And what effect did that have on the people in that environment? What effect did that have of the leaders showing up badly? So just spend a minute.
Badly meaning physically badly?
Oh no, I hope not. That would be very bad. There's levels of badness. There's disagreement, and then there's fisticuffs at the end, yeah. So just 1 minute, turn around and talk to somebody next to you about how a leader showed up badly in front of the team. What effect might it have had? Yeah. Got the microphone. We've got the microphone because I might go around and...
Check.
Is it on? Okay. Let's wrap up your conversations. Feel free to take your seats. Yeah, feel free to take your seats. What I would love to hear is from maybe one or two of you, if you would share the example that you've discussed in your pair or trio. Here we go, we've got an example coming up. It should be on.
Yeah, so I was talking that there was one experience that I had with one of my managers. I mean, the director was running the entire project. And it happened that she was so diplomatic that she never wanted to really hear or empathize with what ideas others had, you know. So I just told them one quote that the bottleneck is always at the top of the bottle, you know, and it impacts the entire bottle. So what needs to be done is that the bottleneck has to be clear and good enough, you know. So this is the example that I gave.
Yeah, feel free. Yeah.
Thank you. This happened to me in Accenture. One of my boss, he was called me for a one-on-one session, and then he was told me that, okay, whenever your team is or you are talking to your client or whatever, you make sure that whatever the negativities are there, you cover it up with some cover and present it with like a, you know, whatever the gift-like structure. Don't expose yourself into the reality of the world to the members or your client, which I didn't like it. Should tell the truth, be transparent, and so that people will be able to support you when you are in a need or something like that. If you're not, then you will be into the soup, right? That's what I found. It is not a right leadership quality he has got.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I'll go one more. I've got one. You'd already asked, I say.
So, yeah, you're asking something and I'm just, so you're asking something and I'm just seeing some other direction and I'm replying some other thing. So it means that the particular manager or some other person, they're not showing enough interest, like what exactly the other person is saying. So that is a bad thing which I faced in my previous experience.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, absolutely.
Suppose if you're asking and I'm just seeing here and there and I'm simply asking some other things, which is not relevant to the topic.
Oh, okay. Cool. So you got something to share. Last one.
Yeah.
We'll go into that side next time.
So this happens to me even today with my manager here.
Oh.
Recently we missed a delivery, and my manager walks into this meeting, and then he's got a very condescending tone and says, "I don't care. You guys should have figured it out. I'm not going to, I don't know, you just get it done." Right? I mean, I would expect, and things were not in our control when the delivery slipped, right? So I would expect a leader to collaborate with us, understand what are the impediments, and take these impediments out collaboratively.
Exactly. Awesome. Thank you very much. So, personal leadership. Here's the example I've got from my experience. This was from my, I'm making the cameraman trip over, from my P&O era. We had a leader at a point in time. That leader said to the team, there's no such thing as bad news. I just want to know everything. And that was his mantra. No such thing as bad news. I was a developer in the team at the time, and I can't remember the exact thing, but something wasn't going well in the work we were doing. It was creating delays, creating problems. So my leader of the time had to take that news to the boss. And he had a nice corner office, and it looked out over the channel, and you could see the ferries going across. It was lovely. So my boss went into this leader's room and shut the door, and he tried to explain what was going on. And then you heard the shouting, the boom! Why is this going on? This is going on. Oh, it was awful. Everyone in the office heard it. My direct manager just came out, and the effect that had is that after that point in time, nobody would tell that leader the bad news. It had a direct effect on what we were doing, right? It was terrible. It goes to show how you show up and how you act as a leader can have a real impact on your team. I've got a few skills on my slides that I think fit under each of the categories. I'm not saying they're full and complete, but they're the ones that I've identified for each category. You've heard this term earlier from Vishal, self-awareness. I think leaders need to show that they can be, acting in a self-aware state, keeping their thoughts in check, making sure they are self-aware. I've got a bit more on self-awareness later on. Self-regulation, this is that act of showing up. We don't want them to show up to a team in a way that's going to affect how the team feels. Mindfulness, that also came up with Vishal. You've seen lots of things, of synergies here with Vishal's talk. Mindfulness, looking after themselves from a mental perspective, and again, demonstrating to a team that that's something is a good thing to be doing. For me, that's a good leadership trait. And mindfulness might also go as far as looking after yourself physically as well. A classic example for me is I've been away from home for now the last 10 days. When I go back to work, I'm probably going to jump straight into work. The people in my team are going to think, oh, he's worked so hard. He's just work, and he's come back in and he's doing more work. We need to work like that. Actually, maybe the better thing I should do is say, I've been away. I'm going to take a couple of days out to recover before I come back to work. Because then I can be better performing, but that's what I want my team to be doing. As a leader, you need to have the power of influencing. Not that directive, telling your people what to do, but influencing them to do the right things. And I think your example fell into that category as well. And also be aware of your leadership style. You might be a charismatic leader that can stand at the front of a room and everybody can listen to you and they just like to follow you because you're charismatic. You might be an expert leader who's got a detailed knowledge in a topic or a skill or something like that, and people follow you because you've got expertise. You might be a democratic leader and like to see what the teams are feeling and get a vote from everybody and get everybody on board and make sure you're working in the right way. And there's probably lots and lots of other leadership styles that you might want to think about. I guess one thing I would add to that is you need to be thinking about your leadership style in the context of the situation. And you might need to learn to adapt your leadership style as well to better get results in that situation. So there's some skills that I think fit into this category of personal leadership. Self-awareness, self-regulation, mindfulness, influencing, and leadership style. Awesome. My next one. So the O of poetic leadership is organizational. And maybe this time you can sit down, but just turn to the people next to you and we'll spend a minute or so sharing examples with each other of where work has got stuck in between teams or departments, or there's competing priorities. This team over here, you're being asked to implement Agile. This team over here, you're being asked to completely redesign the infrastructure. And that's all in the same organization. So just spend a minute talking to the person next to you, and we'll come around. And this time I'm going to be looking over this side to see if there's any examples that you want to share. So pair up in your trios and have a conversation about where work gets stuck or where there are competing priorities in your organization. And I'll give you 1 minute. Okay, let's start to see if there's any experience that anyone would like to share. I've got someone here that would like to share their experience.
Hello.
Okay, everyone, if you could pay attention, please. Wrap up your conversations. We've got an example here.
Okay. I'm going to share an instance where in particular organization, SAFE is not implemented, and we had a centralized UI UX design team, and then they were supporting for 2 teams who are working towards the same release, and then they had always had a conflicting priorities in giving the designs, and then a lot of heated up conversation, and then missing the deadlines and deliverables and all of that, and also wherein leadership could not understand how the teams were finding it difficult with this kind of things in place. So.
Yeah, I get that. So you had an organizational, I don't know why it's getting feedback, organizational constraint there that was stopping the teams from being effective because there was a separate UI UX team. Awesome. Is anybody else? Oh, there's one right at the back. I'm going over there. Here you go, sir. Oh, I'm getting my exercise. I'm going to sit down now.
Hi, my name is Jose. I'm a product manager. So my challenges over here is like on the same thing, the UI UX, which he was saying, and few developers also, depends on the tech stack. So basically, our not like particularly in an organization thinks that okay, this particular application doesn't have great business value, and this particular application platform, it's not user facing, not go to market. It is used inside the organization only. It is used by certain. We have a lot of branches. Certain branches only using. Why need to spend, on the UI UX? Why we need to spend for this particular stack? So they're thinking in that way. So as a product manager, what I think is like a particular department needs certain bandwidth, UI, UX, and certain developers. So it helps to develop the platform gratefully. So they're thinking in a business value as well. So this is kind of challenge I face.
Nice. Okay, so similar challenge, constraints with UI, UX. In the interest of time, I'll take one more. Because I know lunch is 12:45, right?
Myself, Vijay, I work as a senior Scrum Master and Agile coach. The problem I face is like the solution is ready from development, probably from UI, UX.
So you've developed it?
Yeah, development is, everything is ready. Always the bottleneck is DevOps,
Oh.
where you don't have the environments ready at all.
So you've not done DevOps right because you've got development and ops.
Always they are saying we don't have the bandwidth to support these all things. So you delay the releases even though everything is ready because they don't have the bandwidth. So these kind of things need to be better planned and better communicated as well.
Nice. Okay. So another constraint there is DevOps and development not being aligned and not having the right capacity, I guess, to be able to deliver value. So let's have a look at organizational leadership. Interestingly, the first one I've picked up here is flow. And for me, this is a term that's being used more and more in the organizations I'm working in. They're sort of not using the agile language so much because Agile is bad nowadays. We're all thinking about flow. What can we do to get the best flow of value from end to end? And I guess that is lean thinking, right? You could do value stream mapping, you could customer journey mapping, you could do process mapping. But in your example there's a bottleneck in your system. You've done the development, now work is sitting there. You've done all that work, it's now sitting on a shelf, gathering dust, not getting the value out of the work that you've done. So part of an organizational leadership is making sure that I'm getting distracted, sorry. Part that our organizational leadership is that the flow of value from idea to the customer all the way through is being thought about. I like that. That said, I would like leaders to think about when they're making changes to any part of the organization, they're thinking from a systems thinking perspective. Systems thinking is that interaction of humans and the technological skills. It's your sort of metaphysical system. And when you change one part of your system, it could have effects elsewhere in your system that might be changes to process or affect people. And for me, a leader needs to be really thinking about that sort of systems thinking mindset to change. I'll give you an example for this one. So from my C Prime last couple of years, we were merging many companies together into one company. One of the directives was to pull this all under one brand. Pull it under one brand. Great. Cool. C Prime was known in the US. RadTech was known in the UK. We're going to put it all under one brand. What effect do you think that had on our business in the UK? There was cultural change. Yes. Anything else? Scaling the business, yeah? What effect do you think that had on our UK business?
It can go down.
Our UK business went down. Why did it go down?
Because they have already US management.
Yeah.
Now shift is happening, so they may not have that trust coming into the C prime.
Exactly. RadTech had been operating in the UK since 1998. It had earned trust with the organisations and the people in the UK. People knew, go to RadTech. C Prime.
Leadership is sitting in US.
Yeah. Oh, leadership is different in the US. Tax rules are different in the US. There was all sorts of challenges we had. Just change the brand. Switch to their website. Yeah, but you're not collecting VAT in the right way for our... It was so funny. I'll come back to that story in a little while. What else have I had? Have clear goals and outcomes. We've talked about this. Vishal mentioned it. Have that clear objective. Where are we heading? Making sure everybody understands it. It's an aligned objective. I think I should also put the word good on there as well, because you could say there was an objective to putting RadTech and C Prime together under one brand, but was that a good objective? Maybe not. So there's some skills there that you might need to have for organisational leadership. I'm going to move us along. I'm not going to do this activity. I'm just going to talk about emotional leadership. You will have seen self-awareness mentioned a number of times. This quadrant diagram on the right-hand side there is sort of a definition of what emotional intelligence is combined of. The slide's got a bit misaligned. But you've got here awareness of yourself and awareness of your actions. That's like that self-awareness and self-regulation that you've seen. You've got awareness of others and actions with others and building this relationship management. So we quite often talk about emotional intelligence, but actually there's aspects to that that I think you need to think about. Because we want to get to the point where as a leader, we can influence others. So emotional intelligence. The skills that I had up here then for emotional intelligence. Having a deep respect for your people. If I go back to that C Prime story, we were saying, don't do that, you're going to affect our business in the UK. It would not be a good move. But the leadership didn't respect and listen to what we were saying. So for me, this is a key part of emotional leadership, having a respect for the people that work with you. Have that emotional empathy. Understand why people are feeling in a different way. Throughout my RAD-TAC and C-Prime journey, there have been difficult moments where we've had to move people around and right-size the company. COVID was a very, very difficult time. We had to do some really difficult things to survive. As I say, we did have that sort of uptake afterwards. But simple things we had to change had deeper effects on how people were thinking and behaving throughout that time. So have that emotional empathy. Create psychological safety. Again, how you show up. Remember my example of that leader that shouted at people? That did not create great psychological safety. It created an environment where people did not feel like they could show up. I've recently been doing some leadership training with, let's just say, a large financial institution, and I was training the leaders of a particular business unit. And I was explaining to them, what you need to do is you need to create psychological safety for your teams. Their response to me was, but we haven't got psychological safety, because the leader above them was one of those people that shouted on him. And for me, this comes back to, we need to have psychological safety at all levels. Some of this stuff has got to come top down as well as bottom up. So psychological safety. Emotional leadership. Respect for the people, have empathy with them, create an environment where they can be psychologically safe. I'll skip this in the interest of time and lunch coming up. Team leadership. I was reflecting upon my section here yesterday when Gino was talking about the Cynefin framework and how in different contexts you're going to have different sized teams. For me, the value of thinking about what that team is and how they're working together is really, really, really valuable. I really do feel like you should be thinking about team leadership. We've all heard this concept, long-lived teams. We keep our teams together for a long time. They go through group development. They will start to become, forming, storming, norming, performing, whatever framework you want to use. Keeping teams together for a long time enables them to get to know each other, to get to know how each other works, and to become high-performing. So, long-lived teams. We need to have an environment where we're creating motivation and support for those teams. I was doing a training class earlier this week with my friend over here, Govind, and we were talking about the Scrum framework. And one of the artifacts in Scrum is the increment. And the analogy he used is, what do you get at the end of the year? An increment, right? Money is possibly a motivator, but it's more of a demotivator if you're not being paid enough. And I really like, if you want to look at motivation, have a look at Dan Pink's Autonomy, Mastery and Purpose. And what Dan Pink says is that once you've taken factors off of the table, like people's pay, their terms, their conditions, there's 3 factors that lead to motivation. Having the autonomy to decide how you're going to do the work, being able to master new skills, and working for a purpose, a reason. If we go back to those clear goals and outcomes, Agile's given us a purpose. If we can create teams that own their outcomes, own their products, then they're going to feel like they've got autonomy to make decisions over those things. And if we can allow teams to make decisions, perhaps they can start to learn new things and master new things. And for me, decision-making is the really valuable part there. Leaders that are bottlenecks in the system, that make the decisions and not enabling the teams, are not going to get an effective flow through their system. So enable teams to make decisions. Where have I got to? T, I, and C. I've still got I and C to go. 7 minutes. Right, I better get a wriggle on, hadn't I? I'm going to skip that then. I'm going to ask a question. Do we need intelligent leaders? Yeah? What would be a disadvantage of having an intelligent leader? over-influencing. They might not listen to the team. They might dissect and get in the way.
There's a difference between intelligence and sensibility.
There's a difference between intelligence and sensible. I like that one.
Highly opinionated.
Yes, they might have lots of opinions. And they've got to know when to use that intelligence.
Emotionally over-intelligent.
Oh.
The team is gone.
Oh, yeah. It's interesting. So you talk about EQ for emotional intelligence and IQ for intelligence. Actually, a whole person is probably made up of both of those two things, right? So yeah, I like to think of leadership skills as you've got to have business acumen. You've got to be thinking, what is the valuable thing to do for a business? And sometimes you might have to make some decisions, like that switch, I don't know, maybe, on the railway line, that is around, are you doing the valuable thing for a business? I think leaders possibly need to understand Lean and Agile. I'm not saying they've got to do it, but they've got to know how to enable their teams to be Lean and Agile. So they've got to have Lean, Agile acumen. They might be those leaders that have particular skills in a particular domain. So they might need to have domain knowledge and domain acumen. So there's lots of aspects there of sort of knowledge that a leader might need to have. I think you want your leaders to know what they know, but more importantly, know what they don't know. Because there's going to be people around them that then can help them. And for me, that is probably the most valuable part there. Enable your leaders, or hopefully your leaders know what they don't know, and that's when they'll come to you. Oh, none of this is easy. I mean, I could just say, could you do all of those things? Yeah, it is very difficult. And you've got to be self-aware of what you know and what you don't know. And lots of these things are all integrated with each other, right? Awesome. Last one. And I'm not going to do the activity because lunch is on its way. How playful and curious are your leaders? For me, curiosity is a really interesting aspect of leadership. Again, if I go back to RatTac, when we were in that COVID time, our business stopped. We had to experiment. Like, we had people sitting around doing nothing. We had to try new things. Do we do this? Do we do that? How do we get our stuff done online? There was loads of experimentation. And we were forced into that because of COVID. But actually, I think you need to have an element of curiosity all of the time in an organization. Are you trying new things? Are you learning? Are you budgeting to experiment and have innovation budgets? Whatever it might be that you need to do as a curious leader. Are you allowing yourself to explore new topics, new trends, new markets, AI? Are you enabling experimentation and that successful fail fast mindset? Of course, fail is negative. I like to think about a learning mindset. Don't forget, FAIL stands for first attempt in learning. That's a little tip for you all. Innovation, I've mentioned that. You've got to have that space and plan for innovation and budget for innovation. If not, your company might stagnate and you might not grow into the future. Got to have a learning mindset. Mention that one. Got to have a growth mindset. You've got to have that mindset that what we're doing now might not be what we need to do in the future, and what somebody knows now might not be what they know in the future. And final one on here, and I mentioned this right at the very, very beginning, you've got to be able to have that Gemba. Gemba is another Japanese word. We love Japanese words because of our foundations in Lean, and it means go to the place of work. If I'd directly gone and seen that person in the operations team and she was turning on and off the monitor on a computer, I would have found that out much quicker if I'd gone to the place of work. So that's it. That's my, my poetic leadership model. I'm sure there's bits missing. I've not finished. Hold on. Hold on. I said there was two things that came from AI. The second one is a poem. I did not write it. I might need my glasses on for this one. In poetic ways, a leader stands, guiding teams with mindful hands. With hearts and minds, they light the way, empowering voices every day. They are curious, bold, and lean at heart, inspiring trust, they play their part. With empathy strong, they build a scene of culture, agile, wise, and lean. And that is the end. Woo! Thank you all very much. 1 minute to spare.
Thank you so much, Alex.
Yes, please.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. It's a wonderful talk. I have a question on team leadership.
Yes.
So I have a contradictory ask for you. So we say that the team should be long-lived.
Yes.
But I'll
stay here.
So what I see as a negative in that is that the team being long-lived is not able to explore the other opportunities away from the team. That is one thing. Second thing, what I'm observing is that the relationship between the teams are so bonded in such a way that whenever they go to a new team or see some new person, they are taking time to get adapted. So it is good, but it is not a great way to continue that long-lived relationship as we are with our family members. But I would say that needs some transformation is my take. That's what at least I'm saying.
I appreciate that. Look, I think you could possibly argue there's lots of those things in there that you might not need of all of the time. Do you need long-lived teams? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. It's a good shout. I would expect my teams to be able to be given the environment where they could learn and grow. And that might mean every now and then a team member might need to go and join another team to learn a new skill. So I don't think it's like locked in place. You can't ever move people around. I think you do need to have that ability to grow and change over time. But I guess what you don't want to do is the old thinking where you go, right, we'll get a team together for 6 months, you need to do that thing, bang, bush, then you crash the team, gone, they're no longer around. Everything is a balance. Life's a balance. And I'm going to say it's lunchtime.
Thank you so much, Alex. This was the last question. If you want to ask more questions, you can catch Alex during the break time. I request Suresh to please felicitate Alex. Yeah, you should be there. Thank you so much, Alex, for this beautiful session. Let's hear it out for Alex.